Okay, so we're going to get started now. Hopefully we're right on the knocker with timing. Welcome everyone to our joint webinar with Kamala Tech and Refined today. I'm Genevieve and I'm the partner manager at Refined. We're a leading app vendor based out of Sweden, but also with a second office in Helsinki. And we essentially make a simple site building tool that integrates Confluence, Jira, and Jira Service Management. Today, we're largely focusing on Confluence, and that's where the power of Comalatech and Refined work so well together. And specifically, we're going to focus on knowledge bases. I'm just going to let my co-host, Daryl, introduce himself as well.
Good morning, good afternoon, folks. My name is Daryl Coran, and I'm the customer success manager here at Comalatech. Comalatech's an app vendor in the Atlassian ecosystem. We've been in the ecosystem for well over 13 years now, and we create apps for both Jira and for Confluence. Our flagship app is Kamala Document Management, which allows for process and control for your Confluence content. We have two offices, one here in North America and one in Europe, to help support all our great customers around the world. And just a little bit of housekeeping before we get going here, Genevieve. Just so everyone's aware, your mics will be muted for the duration of today's webinar. We do encourage questions. So if you do have any questions, feel free to use the Q&A or the chat box or the chat window to ask any questions that you have about both apps or how the apps integrate as well.
Yeah, indeed. All right, so let's get stuck in. So as I mentioned, we're focusing mostly on knowledge-based or knowledge management strategies today. And we're going to look at how our apps might help you to improve your knowledge-based solutions built on Confluence. And we're also going to show you how the apps might work together. Yeah, and as Daryl mentioned, if you have any questions as we go, please add them to the chat and we'll address those at the end. So just to begin with, we can set the scene with Confluence. So I'm sure pretty much everyone who's in this session today is familiar already with Confluence, and you'll understand that it's a pretty great solution for storing and managing your organization's knowledge, and whether that's learning materials, guides, policy documents, anything really. And some people think that once you have Confluence, then you're good to go, and that's all there is to it. But in fact, there are a lot of really powerful apps available on the marketplace that can help you to really improve the user experience, both for the end user and your Confluence admins alike. So if users, for example, are dipping in to Confluence, to a native Confluence, and they're trying to find the information that they need, sometimes that information might get buried in spaces, and sometimes the information can become outdated, for instance. So essentially, like, this presents an opportunity for improvement. And specifically, what we're going to focus on today is this element of finding the information and managing the information. So broadly speaking, there is in fact plenty of time to be saved when it comes to finding that information in a Confluence instance, and plenty of time to be saved from the admin point of view, managing that information. And if we look at the stats behind this, or some facts, Adaptivist put out a great study recently called the Digital Etiquette Study, and they found that on average we spend 45 minutes each day searching for information, which is, I think that's 4 hours every week, or 20 hours a month is another way of thinking about it. But yeah, essentially, we have a really great opportunity then to improve our knowledge base so that our end users have a much easier time trying to find the information, and our admin users have a much easier time managing the information. And today we're going to specifically cover 3 ways that you might do this in Confluence, and also how our apps might come into these 3 areas. So the first being having your information quality assured, the second being building that really nice intuitive navigation, and a third being structuring that information in Confluence. And yes, we are going to take a dive into our apps. So shortly, I'm going to hand over to Daryl, and he's going to take you through Kamala document management. So here's a glimpse of how it might work in your Confluence instance. So here on a Confluence page, if I was, for example, the HR person, I might come in here, approve this document, and then this very nicely gets published into the end user published refined version of Confluence. So before we do dive in, just to explain, we're mostly focusing on our cloud solutions today. However, both Kamala document management and Refined for Confluence are available on all 3 deployments. So if you're on data center, server, or cloud, our solutions are available on all 3. All right, so I'm now going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to hand over to Daryl for the next bit.
Thanks, Jen. Be sharing my screen, and we'll be seeing managing information with Comalatech. So as I mentioned earlier on, folks, Comalatech is a app vendor with apps both in Jira and Confluence, and our flagship app is Kamala Document Management. And what really Kamala Document Management does is it adds processing control to your Confluence content. We all know and we all love how great Confluence collaborates the data, but really with Confluence, what we're doing with Kamala Document Management, what we're doing is we're adding that piece where you get control of that content and you release it when you want to, not when it's created right away. And so you can go through that process control by simply approving and reviewing content within Confluence. So at the real core, all we're doing is we're adding and giving you that control over your content again. Kamala Document Management, as Genevieve mentioned, is available both on cloud and on data center. With server being ended, it is still available, but most people are moving to either platforms. And we'll talk a little bit about that a bit later in terms of migration, if that comes up as well. You also have the ability to go in and as a solution, what we provide is our publishing app as well. What the publishing app does, it will provide an automatic sync between your draft content, where all your stakeholders and your editors may have access to. And then once it's approved, it will automatically sync over to your published site. And as Genevieve mentioned, we will definitely be taking a look at this in a live demo as well shortly here. All of the apps in terms of both server and cloud do have the ability to customize your workflows. So you can go in and use our builder, a native builder, and build out your specific workflow that meets your requirements. We do have templates that come with the app, so you can definitely use the app right out of the box with one of our built-in templates. And there's a three that really come out to you in the cloud that you can utilize. One is called basic approval workflow. There's also the content management workflow, and finally the QMS workflow. And again, if you want to start just customizing those, you can start with any of the templates and start customizing your workflow to match your requirements. As I mentioned, we also, with your workflows, you do also have the ability to add an expiry date. So these expiry dates allow you to, again, have control of your content and be able to come back and automate a re-review cycle as well. So if your content it has a validity point, or you want to make sure it's not stale for your audience, you want to make sure that your content editors are informed or reminded that your content is no longer valid or needs to be re-reviewed, and they can get notified automatically through Kamala Document Management that their content is expired and can go in and re-review it, have it reapproved, and once approved, it will then sync in. And ultimately, if any edits or any updates need to be made, then those edits and updates can be made and then re-reviewed and updated and synced with your published space, and synced in with Refined for Confluence as well. I talked about publishing a little bit already, so we'll skip over that. Just a bit of a use case here that we have for one of our customers, Tyler Technologies. Really, what Tyler Technologies had was a problem of being able to release documents to their customers at a pace, and ultimately use Confluence at a pace that they wanted. And what they did was they used Confluence, they used Kamala Document Management, and they used Kamala Publishing to take those articles, create them in Confluence in their draft space, have their editors and the reviewers go in and start reviewing and approving the content. And once reviewed and approved, it will then sync to their published space, and that would then deliver the content to the end users as well. So it's a really easy and seamless implementation for all three apps that we're talking about today: Kamala Document Management, Kamala Publishing, and Refined for Confluence as well. So end the presentation there, and I'll open up my Confluence page. What we have here is a Confluence page that has a bunch of different pages in it, and more importantly, it has this particular page has content on it. Now, this page itself is currently synced and is currently set to approved. However, if I go in and I edit this page, update for Jen, and I publish that. So we're again using native Confluence here right now. And you'll notice as soon as I make an update to any content, the page itself will change in its byline. And this byline represents the Kamala Document Management app itself. When you click on that, what will open up is our Workflows UI. And the Workflow UI will have a few elements to it, namely the approve and reject buttons, but more importantly, it has an add reviewer button. And this add reviewer button allows you to add a reviewer manually to your page that you want to have reviewed. Now there's another way to add reviewers as well, and that's through an automatic or automate that process through your workflow. So if you have, for example, 2 users, or you have a group of users that you know that will always be assigned to review this content for this page or for the state of your workflow, then those users can be automatically assigned in the workflow. And whenever the workflow is set for that piece of the approval, then those users will always be informed and always be notified that they've been automatically assigned to review the content. And I'll show you what that looks like in just a minute here. We'll go through the manual process first, just so we can see what that looks like. So we'll go ahead and click the Add Reviewer button. And I can now search all my users in Confluence. So I'm going to use the user by the name of Adam. I'll click on Adam's name and I'll put a note in for Adam to inform him what he needs to actually review here. So I'll say, please review the key to diagram. Okay. And I'll assign that to him. And as soon as I assign that to Adam, you'll notice that both the approve and reject buttons get grayed out. And that's simply because I've assigned Adam to review the content. And oops, that doesn't look pretty, but we'll do a refresh on this page. And so I'm actually just logged into another browser here as Adam. So I have a distinct different user who signed into Confluence. And so once I sign into Confluence, Adam will be, the page will be in the same status, obviously, as I left it in, as when I assigned that to Adam. Now, as Adam, I can go in, I can make a comment for this approval. I can either approve or reject this content. Now, if I approve it, it will simply transition to the next phase of my workflow of this, or what we refer to as a state. So a state is just a phase of your workflow. And those states and phases that are built are all customizable to match your requirements. And how the article transitions, or how the workflow transitions, is based on if I approve or reject this content. So if I approve it, it will transition to my next state called approve. If I reject it, it'll go to my rejected state that I've built in as well. So I can say, looks great. Oops. And I can approve that. And once approved, the content will approve, and it will it will now be in an approval state. But more importantly, you'll notice that right now the workflow is in an out of sync status. If I go ahead and just refresh this page, now that it's been approved, the workflow looks like my user didn't have enough permissions to do the publishing. So I will force this publish. As the administrator, I can force any publishing as well on the pages that I'm working with. So in case that editor or that approver doesn't have permissions on the publish space, I can go in and force that as well. So I'll go in and I'll force that publish. And once I force that publish, it will automatically publish to my publish space. And this is what we talk about in terms of having that one solution, of being able to complete your review. And once your review is complete, the content will publish directly over to your published state, space, I should say. Looks like we're having a bit of a problem here, but I'll update this and I'll just go through the review process again and complete the approval. And once approved, it will sync over to my published state. And as I mentioned, folks, when I complete that, it will automatically sync up with my, looks like we're having a bit of a problem today, but what would happen is it would go over to our published space. And in the published space, this is where my content is synced, and it is now ready for, well, it looks like it did update there. So it did update, and what would happen is that content will now be ready for Confluence to take over and display that content for our consumers, for either internal customers or external customers. And that was just a really simple view of how Kamala Document Management can create an approval, assign a reviewer, have that reviewer approve it, and then automatically have that content synced to your published space, so reviewers can now review that or take over to have Refined for Confluence take over and make it more presentable to your audience. One last thing that I do want to share with you folks, I do want to share with you just a different workflow. And in this particular workflow, we have different statuses. So if I edit this page and I make an update here, I'll say great update, and I'll publish that. We now have this particular page will go into a draft state. And you'll notice that when I click on the workflow UI, you'll see a few different elements on here. And this is because of my design of this workflow. I have different states and phases of my workflow. More importantly, you'll notice that I have a emailing token on here. And this is a feature for any customer that needs to have a e-signature assigned to their workflow. This e-signature is built in with two-factor authentication. You can use any off-the-shelf two-factor authentication app. I use, for example, Google Authenticator. You can use a Microsoft Authenticator. We recently created a integration with a company called Inweebo that creates an even more stronger authentication than simple two-factor authentication. So you have different avenues of authenticating your users. But in this case, for this example, I am using Google Authenticator. So when I type in my, in order to complete the approval, I will need to type in my my corporate email address, and that's been assigned to me, and that email address that I'm logged in with Confluence in order to complete that approval. So if I go ahead and type in my email, and the token that's assigned to me from Google Authenticator, that's on my cell phone or my mobile, I would then go ahead and complete that approval. And once it's approved, it goes into my next state called the in approval state. And in here, I'll complete the approval as well as myself. And this time I have a different token since the app refreshed, and I'll complete my approval. And once that's done, it's now published. And that is that's what we refer to as our e-signature functionality. Now, the e-signatures and all of that content that we just went through in terms of the approval process is all kept within the page itself. And it's actually stored in what's referred to as our activity report or our workflow history report. And when you click on the Actions tab within the Workflow UI, you can click on the Activity Report, and what will open up is a page that completes that gives you information about that entire approval process. So you'll see here that we have different versions of each page, and those versions are whenever someone clicks on the Edit button in Confluence. And I'll keep that version and that information of that version of what occurred. So you'll notice in my previous version, version 15, I went through the approval process. I had an update, and it tells me that Daryl signed and approved the page on a specific date and time. And then I went through an iteration or review of this page today, and I went through that entire approval process, and it's now approved, and it was signed and approved by me on today's date at this given time. And it's currently in the published state. And this is very important to make sure that we supply this information, especially for auditing purposes, that that information, is displayed, and it can be retrieved by any user in the company to supply for auditing purposes. Not only do we have that page activity or the workflow history report, but we also have a report that gives you a holistic view of all your pages in the space. So if I want to see what current status all my pages are in, I can click on the workflow report on the left panel here and see exactly what state the page is in, who is it currently sitting on, and more importantly, when was it last updated, and if there's an expiry set to be applied to that page. So that's all part and parcel of Kamala document management, and you'll have the ability to see all of this and also filter based on any given workflow state that I have, or any of my own pending approvals as well. Now, how is this all completed? How is this all designed and created? Well, this is all created through what's referred to as our workflow engine, and that's located in our space settings. So only space administrators can access this area. And you can go to Content Tools, and you'll see a tab there called Kamala Document Management or Document Management. And this document management will open up, and the document management dashboard opens up. And in this dashboard, you'll have the workflows that are currently set and the ability to edit the workflows as well. If I want to change the workflow, I can click on Change Workflow, and I can open up to my 3 out-of-the-box workflows that I talked to you about earlier: the basic approval workflow, the content expiry workflow, and the content management system workflow. You'll notice if I scroll down, I have a bunch of other workflows as well here. These are just custom workflows that I've built as well. But in order to build or customize your workflow, we recommend you start with one of our templated workflows and then start building out from there. So for example, if I wanted to modify or update a workflow, let's say the basic approval workflow, with some of my own content or own requirements, I would click apply. And then once I've applied that workflow, I could then edit that workflow either with the builder, or if you're comfortable, you can also use the JSON editor as well. I'm going to go ahead and use our workflow builder, which is our UI or GUI interface. And in here, what opens up automatically to is the actual navigation builder. So this is just a navigation, and what you work with is our working panel is on the left side here. If I want to update, let's say, for example, the review state, and I want to rename this, I can simply go ahead and click on the review state, go up to our working panel, and click on the pencil icon and rename this to perhaps even draft. And I'll update that, I'll apply that. And if I try to save this, I'm going to get an error. And that's going to give me an error because this name of this particular workflow already exists. So I just need to rename this workflow. So I can go up to the top working panel again and just rename this to Daryl's wonderful approval workflow. And when I apply that, and now when I save that, that will now take as a committed update. The two, so once I've updated my workflows, or if I want to add additional elements, I can come in here as well, and I can add additional elements in terms of approvals and transitions. Approvals is just an area where I can go in and set my reviewers. So I can, if I have 3 options to me, I can have anyone come in and approve. So if anyone stumbles on the page, they can click on the approve or reject buttons. I can have users assigned to the UI. So that's where I went in and actually physically clicked on someone's name, for example, Adam. Or I can set those reviewers. And that's what I talked to you about earlier in terms of automating that review process or assignment process. So if I want to go ahead and assign someone, for example, I can add Adam, I can add Roberto, and I can add L. And those 3 users are now assigned as automatic reviewers. So whenever this page is, when a page is created and this particular workflow is used, they will automatically be assigned to the draft approval. And I can also assign groups. So if I don't want to assign just general users, I can assign groups as well. So if I can add a group in my Confluence group settings and assign them automatically to this approval as well. If I add multiple users, or if I add, for example, a group here, and I only need one person to approve it to transition from one state to the other, or one phase of my workflow to another, I can use what's referred to as our minimum approvals. And this minimum approvals will give you the ability to allow for one user to approve it or reject it to transition to the next state. And then you can also flag in our approvals, our e-signatures if you want, or also apply a label, an action label, other than approve and reject. And so that's how you can start customizing your workflows. Now, today's webinar, we just don't have enough time to get into everything. So if you do have any questions, as Genevieve mentioned right off the top, feel free to reach out to me in terms of having any questions with your approvals. I can definitely help customize a workflow for you. We can definitely help with any questions that you may have whatsoever. And just to show you folks just a quick kind of an end element of what document management and what Refine can do for you, we have our wiki itself, which is built using that structure. And this is where we tell everyone to come and take a look at, because this gives us all our great content, all collaborated using Kamala Document Management, Kamala Publishing, and Refined for Confluence as well. Genevieve, that's everything for me that I wanted to
Great, thank you, Daryl. You have quite a lot of questions coming in, but we promise we'll address those at the Q&A section at the end.
Yes, definitely. Thanks for mentioning that. So I'm going to stop sharing now, and I will hand it over to you.
Great, thank you. All right, so let's get back into this. So I'm going to now cover the structure and organization side, now that hopefully you have a really great idea of how you might better manage the information in a Confluence. And specifically, hopefully what you'll get out of this is a better understanding of how you can work with Refine to restructure and reorganize the content into a much more intuitive navigation. And then hopefully even better after that, you'll have saved yourself some time, or your end users time, searching for information. So just to start off, this is a current customer of ours called Spot On. They're a tech company based out of San Francisco, offering sort of like a small fintech solution for small enterprises, I believe. And as you can see here, Spot On recognized that designing a knowledge base is a little bit like designing any site. So they've really thought about, okay, what do my users need to see first? What matters to my users? And how can we work with the design in order to display this so it's prominent to the users? So as you can see, they have a very nice example here, and directly on the Help Center, they've identified 4 key areas of information that make those specific areas very easy to navigate to. Okay, and the good news is that it's very easy for you to do the same, and I'm going to show you how today using this sort of fake demo company that is called NewComp. And just to give you a bit of background to how this company works, which would be, for example, a typical customer that would use our app. So imagine this company, they've got 3 offices, roughly 400 employees, and they're already using Confluence, Jira, and Jira Service Management. But they've had a few users complaining that they're unable to find the information in Confluence that they need. And we've also had a few complaints from managers over the lack of control of information actually going out on the knowledge base. So they came to us, and together here today, they wanted us to build a solution for them using Confluence, which includes internal product documentation, maybe some product guides, company information, and processes. And they also want to be able to connect their internal service desk, which of course uses Jira Service Management. Okay, oops, I've skipped, spoiler alert, skipped too far ahead, but let's actually open up this demo now, if it will let me. Okay, so first of all, I've opened up a new Confluence instance. And the reason is I want to show you how Refined exists in parallel to Confluence and integrates Confluence. So this is what you're familiar with, but I'm first going to navigate to Refined. And here you'll see the connection to the admin section. So now if you look in my tabs at the top, you'll see that I've opened up the Refined admin section in a parallel tab. And that's because on cloud, Refined is a standalone solution, and we integrate Confluence, Jira, and Jira Service Management into our own solution. So if I were to go to this integrations tab here, you'll see that we have both Jira and Confluence active in this Refined solution. So here under the sites tab where we first landed, you'll see I have in this workshop site a number of different sites all connected to that one Confluence. And this is a real beauty of Refined. You can have as many sites, which are kind of like websites, but for your workplace, connected to that one Confluence or that one Jira instance. And another really beautiful thing is each of these sites can have its own custom URL. So for example, in our new company, you can see here we've already got a support site and we've already got a knowledge site, and I could customize the domain to be, for example, knowledge.newcomp.com. And just to explain a bit deeper, so I'm going to go into a very empty site. So this typically, when you start out, you will create a site here, and then you'll open up and you'll come into this site builder area, and this is where you start to build up that nice structure and navigation that is so important to a knowledge base. And the way that you would do this is you would click add new, and in this example today, remember this new comp really wanted to have some internal product documentation, but also company information and company policies. So let's just start off by creating what we call a page, which is a landing page that's going to exist on your site. I'll save that one, and you'll see if I give you a sneak peek of already what we've set up. So we've now got, this is the landing page, and we've added this company page in the heading, but at the moment, very empty site. Okay, I just need to. All right, so the first thing I would do if I was newcomp is continue to add in my structure. So now I want to add in the actual Confluence content that already exists on Confluence. And because we're talking about company, we might add a space which is all about office information. So we'll add that one in. And we might add another space which is about, let's say, the employee handbook. So we'll add that one in. Okay, so right now these are just living in the top navigation menu, but let's say you have a lot of spaces that might fit under this company topic. Then what you can do is simply drag and drop the space so that it exists underneath your company landing page. So that gives you an idea of how you can build up the structure. What I could also add here is a link. So this might be a link to a Confluence page. It might be a link to your support service. It could be a link to anywhere. But that's another thing that you could add into the navigation menu here. And I'll go back to the customer facing view to show you how that looks now. So we've got our spaces living inside that drop down menu. All right. And another really important aspect that we haven't done yet is actually apply NewComp's branding. So we saw that they had that really lovely green branding theme. So we're going to use, we're going to add that one here. And now, once again, if I refresh, you'll see we've now applied the NewComp branding. And I won't go into more detail on the themes, but you can play around with it yourself quite easily. So the themes, which essentially means the background look and feel of your site, is created in this themes tab. And here you can use the inbuilt theme editor to create that lovely branded look and feel for your end user. Okay, so I'm going to navigate now back to, so this is the site we built up. So it was quite an empty looking site, but I'm going to show you now a more finished version of the NewComp knowledge site. So in this more finished version, you can see we've got a number of spaces organized into the topics under these two topics. So let's navigate now to this finished site to see how this looks. So the first thing to note from the actual end user site is that each of these pages that the customer can look at can be customized and customized essentially to whoever's visiting it. So you saw the spot on example earlier where they'd added the most important information to that help desk page. It's exactly what you can do here on each landing page. And the way you do that is as the administrator, and you can either be the Confluence administrator or you can be a Refined administrator. They would go in here and click the edit page button, and then you'll see this inbuilt layout editor. And the way this works is you would just add content sections, and then you add the module depending on what it is you want to add to build up your page. So in this example, NewComp has added just a welcome message at the top with some lovely personalized text variables there. Here they've used the navigation icon and they've pasted in the URL of the most important space in the site so that users are navigating directly there. They've added an activity stream and just some other basic links plus some Confluence pages. But it's entirely up to you how you want to customize each customer facing page. Also, small tip while I'm here, if you build up a layout that you're really happy with and you want to apply it across the site, you can simply export that layout. And if you're starting out with a layout and you don't know where to start, we have a number of inbuilt templates where you can start from. All right, so now I'm going to show you what an actual space looks like from the Confluence side. So let's, for example, go to that internal product documentation example. So here, once again, this is a space, a Confluence space, but from the refined view. So here we've got our links to our Confluence pages. And for example, if I navigate to a page, now you'll probably recognize what it actually looks like, or you recognize the Confluence page within this. And while I'm here, I'm going to show you an example of how you might work Kamala document management into this. So let's use the HR example again, and let's say this document, which is about office information, needs updating. So what I would do if I was the HR manager who needed to approve this document is I would open up the Confluence page, and let's edit this and say this is finished and perfect. Now And then I'll publish this page. And like Daryl's shown you, we'll simply review this and I'll approve it as the HR manager. So now you'll see it's approved and hopefully it'll automatically publish. And now if I go back to this office information page, let's refresh this. And now you'll see it's updated with the approved text. So that's a really nice way of using both apps. All right, so if I go back to NewComp's requirements, one thing they mentioned that they wanted was to integrate the service desk. So this is a really neat thing about our cloud solution, and that is that you can have Jira projects, Jira service management portals, and Confluence spaces on the same Refined site. So I'm actually going to do this now. So if we add Atlassian content, and here I'm going to find the IT service project. Yes, that's the one I want. So I'm going to add that in. So now this exists on within my site. So if I now go back to NewComp Home and I'll refresh this. So now you'll see they have the service desk project inbuilt in the same knowledge base. So that's a really, really nice feature to remember. Alternatively, you could just have it on a separate site. So if you can use the multiple sites and then just simply add it as a link to a separate site, it's entirely up to you. One really nice thing about if you decided to have it within the same site is the search functionality. So now, let's say, for example, if I searched time, here you'll see, because we've integrated that Jira Service Management project, we get hits for the requests as well as the Confluence knowledge articles. And this is a third nice little feature that we call promoted links. And this is essentially a custom link to anywhere on the web. And where you manage that is in what we call audience features. So as the administrator, you can go in there and manage exactly, what kind of audience facing features that you'd like to see. In fact, I'm going to take you in there now. So here, for example, I could add a link to anywhere on the web, and then you just add your match word. Another popular feature in here is this announcement banner. So this is something you can put site-wide, and it might be especially relevant to a knowledge-based site. And you could hear, for instance, you could say system down on Friday. And then we would make it published, maybe closable, and we can select exactly where on the site we want this to show. So we'll put it bang on the front page, and we'll call it an information alert, and we'll save that one. And now if I navigate back to the site, there you can see we've got the announcement banner now. Okay, so I'm going to stop there and jump back into our presentation. And just to really bring this together, hopefully now NewComp is a happy customer and they have a lovely, clean and engaging design. They have a much more intuitive drop-down menu, so they're able to find that information more efficiently. They've grouped their topics and spaces and information into topics that can live in this top-down menu, but also that they can navigate to from each page. They've also now only got really quality information on their site, thanks to Kamala document management. And the last thing they did was they integrated their service desk onto the same site. So hopefully the NewComp employees like Matt's here are very happy employees And last but not least, we're about to jump into Q&A section. So I'll just round this up by saying, by repeating the fact that our apps are available on cloud, server, and data center. If you have questions about the different deployments, you're welcome to reach out to Daryl and I, and yeah, we'll happily take those. But right now, I'm going to actually jump into the Q&A. It looks like we have 10 minutes left, and I can see plenty of questions coming in there. All right. Okay, if I stop, I'm going to stop sharing so I can read these questions. All right, let's go. Should we go from the top? I will go. So we'll start with the questions that came in during Daryl's demo. So let's start from the very top. And the first question was around approval. So can approval be a group membership? The use case would be only one in the group approves and the page gets published.
Just before we get to the Q&A here and answering that question, I just wanted to introduce Mike Rink. He's our marketing manager. He's here to help us with answering some of these questions. And and so, sorry, I just wanted to introduce him. He's not here just to listen in. But
yeah, I think I also should do the same with my colleague Yaneth there, who's here for a similar purpose. So if anyone has any highly technical questions, Yaneth there has the answers. So I've also invited her in here to answer anything that's highly technical.
Okay, perfect. All right, so yes, I think one of my examples that I showed for Kamala document management was being able to add both a group or multiple users and have one user approve it within that group or a bunch of users, and then have that workflow transition to the next state. So and have that published out. So the answer is yes, that can definitely happen. The second question here from Peter is, can we add multi-level approvals? Peter, maybe we might take that offline. I just want to get a little bit more clarity on that multi-level approval. So we can definitely touch base afterwards, and I can help answer that question better. I do have a bit of follow-up questions here that may make sense just to be on a one-on-one platform. But it can definitely allow for multiple approvals in the same state. Can we see the earlier version of the document and retrieve content if you want to? That is native Confluence, so you definitely can retrieve earlier content if you need to. So you can go into the page history of Confluence and retrieve or do a comparison of different versions and promote an earlier version if you need to. Another question that came in, is there any way to show the e-signature anywhere on the page itself through any type of variable? At this time, no, there is no way to display the e-signature itself on the page. If we're talking about more in terms of metadata and displaying that metadata on the page, that we are working on that feature, but currently that is not available. And we had another question here, dashboard of pages by state. Assuming expiry workflow is used, pages will be auto expired. As content manager, we will need to know what has been expired in case some of the expired content needs immediate update. Yes, if I didn't make that clear, on any transition, let it be a review transition, an expiry transition, a page updated transition, we send out email notifications. And those email notifications can go out of the box, they go directly to the page creator. to let them know that they've been that the page has been expired, or the page has been updated, or the page requires review in terms of being notified the reviewers or approvers. But we do send out email notifications to let them know immediately when a page is expired, and we can also customize that to allow for any other members in the team to be notified as well.
You could also use reporting for that too, right, Daryl? If you wanted a dashboard, you could set up something that would show you the states that different pages we're at. So one common thing we see with the workflow is that if you do have an expiry, you can have it automatically transition to an expired state. And you could use your reporting to see which pages in a state were in that expired state, or pardon me, which pages in a space were in that expired state.
Definitely. Now, I do want to just recognize that everything we're talking about right now is for the cloud version. So what Mike just mentioned is for our data center customers. So our data center customers can definitely display the content on the page through a macro, through our workflow report macro. You can also actually pull metadata in and display that metadata on our data center customers as well. Again, the data center or the server app itself has been in the ecosystem for 13 years, so it has so many features and functionality to it that in order to bring that over to the cloud, just that it will take a bit more, a few more iterations of the version of cloud to catch up. So we know all the great features and great functionality behind Kamala document management that exists on the server and cloud, server and data center, I should say. Sorry, we are trying to catch up to that on the cloud as well. And on the chat, sorry, I'm just looking at the chat right now, not the Q&A. I'm looking at the chat. Genevieve, one question came up, so I'll let you answer that one.
Yes, so the first question I'm reading, yeah, I can see there's a chat as well, is, do you mean that you can allow a different subdomain to any refined site of an instance? So to answer that part, yes, so every site that you create can have its own custom URL. So so you can match it to your own domain. And Yanette, the second part I might need your help with there is this compliant with Confluence way of managing the instance URL?
Yeah, so the refined URL and the custom domains that are possible to add for that are completely different from the Confluence URLs.
Okay. There's also a question in the chat, in the Q&A section, which is, can I make first of all, it says, I'm wondering if Refined or Kamala document management let the users to rate and add comments to the documents. So I'm not sure about the Kamala side, but from the Refined side at the moment on cloud, you can't add comments, but this is something that we currently have in development. So that will be available soon, but we don't have a rating functionality. However, on our server and prem products, you can add the comments and likes. So, and Daryl, from your side?
No, we don't. We have the ability to read and confirm content, but we don't have the ability to rate the content.
All right, so we've only got 3 minutes left, so I'll try to go through these quickly. If we don't get to you, we'll leave you our email addresses in the net. We'll show you our email addresses, and also you can always reach out to our support services. So ours is support.refined.com, and Comalatech is support
at Comalatech.com.
Perfect. There you go. Okay, so the next question is, can I make a template, for example, new comp, internal knowledge, and reuse it? So like I showed you, each layout can be saved. You can use that as a template. So you can export a layout, and like, I don't know if that's exactly what you mean, but yes, in that sense you can. And there was also a question around the theming that was similar to that. Can't find it now. So, but I'll go to the next one in the Q&A. If we were to switch from Refined Toolkit to Refined for Confluence Cloud, would we keep the refined layout of our spaces and the content layout macro within pages, or would switching remove everything? This is one for Yaneth there.
Yeah, so the apps are, so Refined Toolkit and Refined for Confluence Cloud are completely two separate apps. So the Refined Toolkit has the layouting on the space level, as well as some of the very useful macros that you can add on the Confluence pages. But then Refined for Confluence Cloud is the, yeah, like a service of its own that is completely outside of Confluence. So you would need to rebuild your layouts if you were to switch over.
Yeah. Another really good question in now is around the differences in architecture between Refined and Confluence. And the question says, when a page is viewed on Confluence Cloud, then edited, native Confluence is brought up to edit, and then when a page is published, it stays on native Confluence site. Is there any plans to improve this? Yeah, so you're exactly right. So when if you're in Refined, on a Refined Confluence page and you click edit, you will be taken to native Confluence. So that direction, it's already very smooth. So you can simply click edit or create and you're in Confluence. Unfortunately, because of the way the product is on cloud, it's very difficult to have the automatic publishing taking you back to Confluence. So the reverse order is quite challenging. So at the moment, we don't have any plans for making that smoother. We have, like you might have noticed on the Confluence page, there is a button which will directly take you back to Refined. But yeah, that's probably the best answer we can give at this stage. Daryl, there's one for you. If I want to see what content I need to review and approve, do I need to go to each individual space to see pending approvals? Or is there somewhere else I can see all pending approvals?
In data center, server data center, you can pull a my tasks, my Kamala actions. It's called, yeah, my actions now. So you can see on the Confluence dashboard all assigned reviews that you've been assigned to, or approvals that you've been assigned to in one view. So you can see everything globally as well. In the cloud, everything is driven by the space, so you will need to go to the space report and see my pending approvals. So.
Another one for you, Yaneth, there, I think. Can I add a site to internal server-based Confluence for DMZ knowledge space?
So I'm a little bit uncertain of if I understand the question correctly, but if you're using Refined for Confluence Cloud, what you could do is that you could add, you can add a link into the navigation to your server-based Confluence and help the users navigate that way. But you can only include cloud content within your Refined for Confluence Cloud.
There's another question asking, can we add our own theme here? So what I showed you in the site admin section of Refined was that themes tab. So you might have seen I opened up an editor. So there you can build your theme from scratch. So it's just a matter of using the theming editor that we have to change around the colors, apply images, change change the layout and make it how you would like it to look. And you can also in some ways work with the layout to match your theme, but the theme in the theme editor section is the main part where you work with that look and feel. Next question is if you can set the announcement bar both globally and locally. And yes, so when you create the announcement banner, you can select where on the site you want it to show. So whether that's on a portal, whether that's on a specific space, whether that's on the global site, you'll see a drop-down menu when you create it, which will allow you to select exactly where you would like that announcement banner to show. Okay, then there's a question for Kamala. Is there any feature in Kamala to look for redundant topics and notify the user? Also, is there a feature to proofread the documents?
Good question. For redundant topics, you can use our workflow report to see all pages. For the question in terms of a feature of proofreading, I would typically recommend to add the proofread or that portion of it as a portion of your workflow. So you can have a proofread state and allow people to review it and approve it, and then carry on to your transition to your next final approval, perhaps.
Yeah, I would also say, oh, sorry, Daryl. I was going to say, you could also add that as a task. So one thing that Daryl didn't get into was tasks, which is common to some people who might have used our server and data center product in the past, which basically allows you to assign tasks to people that don't necessarily give them the ability to approve or reject the page through the workflow, but can still assign them to do certain things on the page. So I know that I've seen workflows in the past that have people assigned to go through a proofreading task. And then once that's complete, somebody can then approve the page.
There's a good question here again from Martin. From the new Jira Service Desk view in Confluence, is it possible to adjust the content shown to a specific kind of user or user group? This is a great question. So I think you mean when we display Jira Service Desk on Refined, on the Refined site, which essentially is the new Confluence, you're right. So yeah, you can customize the content to a specific user group. So each in the layout editor, each section of content, you can add what we call view permissions. So you can add a specific user group to each section so that only X user group can view each section, and you can do that from the that portal view that we showed you. Yeah, do you want to add on to that, Yaneth, there? No? Okay. Have I missed any questions? We had a lot of great questions. Thanks everyone for chipping in there. Also, so if we did miss a question, or if you do think of something, I'm just going to add those support links that we mentioned before into the chat. And I will share my screen again to just show you our email addresses in case, so if you want to jot those down. So these, if you want to reach out to either Daryl or I, these are our email addresses. But yeah, also very welcome to just file a ticket on our support.
And Genevieve, just to follow up with that, everyone will be receiving an email from us who attended today that will have links to common questions and also, and more importantly, to our wiki and to the was it the docs of Refined as well. So you can definitely find more answers there, and also have our contact details there as well for you to reach out to us with. The recorded webinar, we will be posting the recorded webinar through, I'll let Mike answer that one for me. Mike, the recorded webinar, where are we going to be posting that?
Yeah, we'll be hosting that on our YouTube channel, and we'll be sharing it out on social media. And I'm not sure about the Refined team, what you're planning to do with the recording as well, but it'll be on our YouTube channel for sure.
Yeah, we'll start by sending it out to everyone who's registered, so no worries there.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you for sticking with us a little over the hour. And I hope we've at least covered most of your questions. And yeah, thanks very much for joining us today. And have a lovely rest of your day or evening.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks for joining us. Take care.
Thanks very much.
Bye.